Hello and welcome to this video about the astrological influences of 2023. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
I'm Julia Mijas in San Francisco, California.
And in this video, we're going to take a look at what the outer planets are up to in 2023. In 2023, three of the six major outer planets are changing signs and three are staying in the same signs. Uranus stays in Taurus, Neptune stays in Pisces, Chiron stays in Aries, but Pluto is going to move ahead into Aquarius, Saturn enters Pisces, and Jupiter leaves Aries for Taurus. We're going to tell you how these things feel and give you some important dates when changes happen, suggest ways that you could handle these transits for your own benefit. Let's start at the deep end of the pool with Pluto. So Pluto starts the year in Capricorn, as you can see right here. Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008 and transitions into Aquarius 2023. So a good long time for Pluto to be there and pretty normal. Pluto will then enter into Aquarius in March. And we'll speak more towards that back in a minute. And then it's going to retrograde back into Capricorn in June, right here. All in all, Pluto travels between 27 degrees Capricorn and 0 degrees of Aquarius this year. So what you need to know is Pluto has been transforming the Capricorn nature in us, all of us, and will be moving on to transform the Aquarian nature in all of us. Because Pluto is changing signs this year, you'll feel its influence both in the very end of cardinal signs, 27 to 29 degrees, and also at the very beginning of fixed signs, 0 degrees only. Any planet in your chart placed in these degrees will be having a Pluto transit this year, definitely. And thus that side of you can expect a huge psychological transformation, a real death and rebirth experience this year. It could get pretty intense. Be prepared to let go of control and to do it gracefully and graciously. So what do I mean by all that? And here's why. So Julia, let's you and I toss some ideas around about what it has meant that Pluto has been in Capricorn and how that may have looked in people's lives. What are your thoughts?
Yes, well, Capricorn is a work sign. It's a sign of ambition. Wherever we have Capricorn in our charts, whether we have some planets in Capricorn or maybe just a house in Capricorn, it's where we tend to be very objective driven, also very socially conscious too. Capricorn is a very social sign. It sort of represents where you are in greater society, so to speak. So that area of your chart might be where a lot of your ambitions lay. And Pluto is also very ambitious planet too in a lot of ways. There are some similarities between the two. So as Pluto has transited Capricorn, whether it's just been hitting a house or planets, you may have felt, especially having a lot of ego added to your ambitions, whatever they might be. And, you know, say Capricorn was in your 7th house, it might be your relationship ambitions or your career ambitions if it's in your 10th. And it may have also been a time because both Capricorn and Pluto can have a bit of a control side to them as well, where the control freak in you may have come out a little bit as well.
Yes, absolutely. And Pluto is very transformative. So it tends to put us through a long, dark night of the soul. And as it's passed along Capricorn, we may have felt that very much in our career, in our ambitions, as you say, and we may have felt as if our professional reputation is melting down, or as if some form of psychological volcanic eruption has happened, revealing the darkness within. And so best ways to handle that are, you know, to do with letting go of ego, letting go of attachment, and facing the vulnerability of that moment with grace, and recognizing that If you're feeling lost in the dark and you don't know what's happening, you may be in a major transformation. And if it just got a whole hell of a lot darker, maybe the light is that much closer. Julia, what are your thoughts about Pluto moving on into Aquarius? It's got a very different feel from Capricorn, doesn't it?
Very, very much so. I mean, we're moving from an earth sign, which tends to be a bit heavier, a bit denser, a bit more security oriented, to an air sign, which tends to be lighter, a bit more socially oriented. Aquarius is also social like Capricorn. Capricorn has its society, its social awareness, whereas Aquarius is the sign of groups. So it has to do with who you are within whatever group you identify with. So that could either be a work group or a friendship group. And Aquarius is also a sign of technology as well. It's a very future-oriented sign. It's a very visionary, a very innovative sign. So wherever you have Aquarius, whether you have planets in Aquarius or whether you have a part of your chart in the sign of Aquarius, is where you might find yourself among many, where, it's not necessarily all about you, but who you are in a team context. So Pluto going into the sign of Aquarius, I think, the first thing that I think of is the phrase tyranny of the majority. Maybe feeling a little bit, overwhelmed by the will of the group over your own personal one. That could be one interpretation on a personal level.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pluto will be enacting some transformation through the medium of whatever sign it's in, and also in the area of life represented by the sign that it's passing through. So we have seen a lot of people experiencing transformation in the arena of their career, and as that's in Capricorn, and then as Pluto moves into Aquarius, we'll see a lot of people experiencing transformation in their social groups, in their friendships. And also during Pluto in Capricorn, there's been a lot of sort of, looking at the dark underbelly of the large structures of life, like government, like hierarchies of all kinds. That's very Capricorn, like corporations. And as Pluto moves into Aquarius, we're likely to see the ugly underbelly of tech, and also social networks and tribalism. So these may be some places where we're really experiencing a big transformation in the coming years as Pluto moves through Aquarius, which it's going to be doing until 2043, for about 20 years, all inclusive. So let's see. Now, let's talk about Neptune. So Neptune is traveling along through Pisces right here. And it's been there for some time, since 2011. It's going to be there for a couple more years until 2025. And so as Neptune travels through Pisces this year, it'll be traveling 24 to 27 degrees of Pisces. So what you need to know is any planet in your chart placed in 24 to 27 degrees of any mutable sign at all will be having a Neptune transit this year, definitely. And thus that side of you might fall into a state of confusion or a kind of holding pattern this year. It can be a very spiritual time, and it can deepen your faith in benevolent metaphysical forces if you handle it correctly. Talk about a great trickster. Neptune is definitely that. Julia, what are your thoughts about Neptune in Pisces and Neptune transits in general?
Well, Neptune, since it's been in Pisces for a while, one observation that I've heard that was said by the astrologer Stephen Forrest, which I totally think is right on, is it's been a time where a lot of people have been streaming, a lot of TV shows and stuff. Like, people have been more plugged into sort of fantasy than they have. I mean, even my parents watch more TV in the last since Neptune's been in Pisces than they ever did when I was growing up. So there's definitely a kind of a big checking out if you add Neptune, which is ruled by Pisces, and you bring them together. And another observation I've made is, how much recreational drugs have been accepted in society. That was not a thing when I was a kid in the 90s.
Yeah,
But
hallucinogens are
legal
definitely
cannabis.
ruled by Neptune.
Yeah,
Hallucinogens specifically are definitely ruled by Neptune.
yes, and psilocybins and therapy and all of that type of stuff is becoming much more mainstream. So I definitely think that that is a very interesting correlation. And, in terms of, I don't know, one of the things that also in terms of fashion that I've seen, like while this transit has been happening, is just bright, surreal hair colors. I mean, I know that was also a thing in the 80s for a little while, but it's just been really during that transit, people have been sort of, and all the cosplay and costumey stuff, where people have just been plugging really in the festivals and the, turn yourself into something that's unreal, has, I think, also accelerated under that transit for sure.
Yeah, that's so Neptune, isn't it? And Neptune
Yeah.
in Pisces is in its own sign. And so it's going to be so much more powerful. And so all of this emphasis on fantasy and unreality. And, I think a lot of people have just gone into their own imagination pretty hard. And that happened quite a bit during COVID too. People just turned really internal and, binged lots of Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And so the positive side of Neptune is that it can be very spiritual, and it can be a time for connecting with, unseen forces, with the beyond, with spirit guides, with one's own guidance. It can really be very transcendent. But on the negative side, there can be so much escapism, getting lost in the world of drugs, in the world of imagination, and just watching too much television and excessive fantasy.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's stuff to
And
watch out for.
victimhood. That's another one. That's another one. I think
Sacrifice.
a
Oh,
lot of
sacrifice.
self-martyring, a lot of victimhood to go around these days. And some of it can be real to put a good spotlight where victimhood needs to be sort of honored and looked at. But then I also think it can be taken to excess, which is, again, Neptune going off the edge there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go to Uranus now. Uranus is traveling along through Taurus right here, and this year. Oh, and Uranus is in Taurus from years 2018 to 2025. It's about 7 years. That's very normal for Uranus, very standard. And all in all, Uranus travels between 19 and 23 degrees of Taurus this year, which means that you're going to feel this transit in 19 to 23 degrees of all fixed signs, because Taurus is a fixed sign. So what you need to know is any planet in your chart placed in 19 to 23 degrees of any fixed sign at all will be having Uranus transit this year. And thus, that side of you should expect the unexpected with possible disruptions and even possibly radical leaps, which is something you can harness if you're paying attention. So, Julia, let's talk about this crazy, wacky planet called Uranus. Ooh. And also this sort of the paradox of Uranus being in Taurus, which is so very different from its own nature. What are your thoughts?
Yes, well, Taurus is such a natural, earthy sign. It has to do with security. It has to do with living really through your senses and physicality. And Uranus is anything but. It's very abstract. It's very, it's just, yeah, and it's bizarre. It's just totally a whack job. And it's also the archetype of the revolutionary as well. And what I found has been interesting is, I mean, I think that if just looking at the mundane symbolism of Taurus, it's money, And it can be agriculture too, you know, the things that kind of give us security in this world. And the crypto, I think, has really, really blown up since Uranus has been in Taurus. It existed before, but just it's really accelerated under this influence, as well as, I think, kind of a move, which is just beginning to start now. And I really wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't gain a lot more momentum soon, to digital currencies, central banking digital currencies. You know, they're already testing some in New York through some banks as well as England. So, you know, having, you know, maybe money even being less tangible, you know, is already off gold, and now it might even be less oriented towards cash, which could be kind of an interesting development if it goes in that direction. But, you know, looking at the symbolism, one has to wonder. Even though these haven't been highly publicized in the United States, there have been a lot of farmer, which makes me think of the symbol Taurus, farmer uprisings, like in Sri Lanka and in the Netherlands, especially over, you know, there've been, you know, climate policies that farmers have been pushing up against. You know, it's a revolutionary sign. So I think, you know, that could be a trend we considered, we might even see more of, revolutions in food and money.
Yes, yes. And those are very Taurus themes, as well as, you know, being embodied in general. Uranus is the paradigm shifter. Uranus likes to make big radical changes, and Uranus readily thinks outside the box. So imagine the fish living its whole life in the fishbowl, and then somebody comes along with a little net, picks the fish up and takes it out into the air and says, wow, there's so much more to life than your little fishbowl. This is what Uranus does. And it can touch on anything in your chart. It can perform its action in your relationships, in your career, in your home life, and it can bring a really radical shift. Now, that can feel super disruptive, and it can make you feel a tremendous sense of agitation and rebellion and reactivity for the duration of a Uranus transit. But you can harness this. You can be on top of this. You can be the decider of whether it's a radical leap up, maybe into some stratosphere that you're like a little nervous to be in, or a radical leap down, you know, off of some pedestal or perch that you've been on that you maybe thought you never wanted to leave, but found that, like, well, taking a break from that might be a good thing. And then a radical leap sideways off of your usual map or out of your usual fishbowl onto a new one where you just have to reorient yourself. So knowing that a Uranus transit is coming enables you to be the decider of what form of radical leap it takes, and how you adjust to that. So let's talk now about Chiron. Chiron is traveling along through Aries right now, and it's going to be in Aries this year, the whole year, not changing signs. It moved into Aries in 2018. It'll be there until, it moved in April of 2018. It'll be there until June of 2026. It's a little bit of a long sojourn. Chiron spends longer in Aries than many of the other signs, so this is a bit lengthy. So all in all, Chiron travels from 15 to 19 degrees of Aries this year. And what that means is that any planet in your chart placed in 15 to 19 degrees of Aries or any of the other cardinal signs will be having a Chiron transit this year for sure. And thus that side of you can expect to go through a healing process. It might feel ouchy at times, but if you can stay focused on healing, then you can get some really great results from a Chiron transit. So here's why. Chiron in Aries says that the truth may cut, but it can also heal. Julia, you want to expand on this for a minute?
Sure. Aries is a sign which has to do a lot with individualism, who you are versus other people, what makes you unique. It's also a sign that has to do with one's own confidence, one's own ability to put yourself forward. It's sort of like the masculine principle, which is in all of us, despite how we feel about our gender, it's really the side of us that kind of really embodies that principle and our ability to fight and survive. And so Chiron going through Aries, it sort of makes me think a little bit about like wounding over bullying a little bit, especially, if there's ever been a time in your life where somebody's put you down, maybe somebody in your family or a teacher or something that really hit at your confidence, or where you really had to kind of fight for your own survival. This is a transit that could certainly bring up those types of vibes to you, but also gives you an equal measure and ability to sort of face them, heal them, become a healer to other people in that area of life.
There's an aspect of Chiron that's really important to remember, especially when you're in the trenches of a Chiron transit. And that is that Chiron works by the hair of the dog that bit you approach to healing, which is to say, in the poison is the cure. And so you could be going along in life, and then a Chiron transit comes on and you feel like things are hurting you now. Like somebody is hurting you. They're laying in some new wound right now in the present. And you might be so caught up in the trauma that you don't think to look into your past and ask yourself, well, could this maybe actually just be attached to something in my past, a time when I was hurt that feels just like this? And so the pain of the present can merge with the pain of the former, and by merging, enable you to release and let go of that old pain of the past. But you kind of have to stay conscious and aware that what's happening in the present is not happening to you, as a child, but as an adult, who's powerful and can make decisions and be in charge of your own life. And so it can have a powerful two-way effect. Something that seems like it's happening in the present can reach way into the past and attach to it and merge with it and heal that thing from the past. And if the thing happening in the present reminds you of the past and you move to heal the past, well, then the present can become a non-issue in a wonderful way. And you can emerge feeling whole in a way that maybe you never have before. It's pretty magical, actually, I do believe. Julie, you want to say anything else about Chiron? Shall we move on to Saturn?
Yeah, let's look at Saturn.
All right, so Saturn is entering into Pisces this year. It starts the year in Aquarius, finishes out Aquarius and moves into Pisces in March, right there. And then Saturn's going to be in Pisces for the rest of the year. It's traveling between 0 and 7 degrees of Pisces, and Pisces is a mutable sign. So what you need to know is that any planet in your chart placed between 0 and 7 degrees of any mutable sign at all will be having a Saturn transit this year. And thus, that side of you can expect to feel a sense of pressure, burden, heaviness, and duty, as if you are being tested this year. Put aside the fear and respond with vigor. And I'll return to that thought in a minute. But Julia, I just want to check with you and ask you your thoughts about Saturn moving into Pisces.
Yes, well, since Pisces is ruled by Neptune, that planet of illusion and delusion and idealism, Saturn in Pisces could be quite a reality check and quite a time of disillusionment, where wherever you have Pisces in your chart, let's say you have it in your 11th house of friends. Maybe there's disillusionment you have over your friendship groups or maybe your long-term goals. Maybe if it's in your second house, it's about your money money you're earning, and as well as how you manage possessions, maybe disillusionment about that. And, that can be a little bit of a harsh combination. Saturn and Pisces, their natures aren't necessarily, they don't overlay so easily. However, I think that with Saturn is also a planet of manifestation. Really, that's the higher side of Saturn. And it shows you where your limits are so that you can make the most of what you have within those limits. If you don't know what your limits are, you really can't do anything realistic. So I think that wherever you might feel disillusionment, with Saturn moving through Pisces, or wherever you might get a major reality check that just kind of, or hits a limit that you're a little like bummed out about, it could also be the start of where you can truly make progress, where you can truly sort of move ahead with what your ideals are, by having a very appropriate test to your limits, I think.
So true. And Pisces is so fantasy oriented, and I think that Saturn in Pisces in particular really loves to reach into the realms of imagination, and through art or manifestation to bring forth things into the physical world so that they can be shared with everybody here. And that is hard work. And Saturn is going to be pressing all of us, by asking the hard question, how tough is your dream? Is your dream really worth working for? Do you have a fix on your own, North Star, your own beacon? And are you ready to do the work that it's going to take to get there? And yeah. And, Pisces is about sleep and rest, like REM sleep, deep sleep, meditation, engagement with spirituality, otherworldly factors, metaphysical practices. And Saturn may be saying, where's your spiritual center? Are you walking your talk? Are you living the dream? Are you living your ethics and morals based on your spiritual principles? How do you manifest that stuff? And also, do you have good sleep practices? I think it's so easy to forget that in America in particular, and probably plenty of other places as well, we work as if we are going to sleep when we're dead. And it shortens our lives, and it doesn't have to. Sleep practices are good and important. Let's see. Are we ready to do Jupiter? I think maybe we are. So Jupiter is going to be moving into Taurus this year. It starts the year in Aries, as you can see. Going to move ahead into Taurus by May, right there. And then it'll spend the rest of the year in Taurus and into next year as well, pretty far into next year. Taurus is a fixed sign. And we spoke of Taurus a little while ago when we were talking about Uranus. So Jupiter and Uranus are going to be occupying the same sign. What you need to know is any planet in your chart placed between 5 and 15 degrees of Taurus is going to be having a Jupiter transit this year. And thus, that side of you can expect easy growth, confidence, luck, and opportunity this year. Jupiter is one to know about. Optimizing, maximizing, utilizing a Jupiter transit is so important to do. You got to know where your luck is and then do something about it. Julia, what are your thoughts about Jupiter in Taurus specifically?
Well, Jupiter is a fiery planet because it rules Sagittarius. So first you wonder, what does it have in common with Taurus? But, Jupiter is exalted, meaning that it does really well in Cancer. So there's a sense of Jupiter, which is about growth, right? Cancer is the sign of growing a family, fertility, and Taurus in a lot of ways can have a lot to do with growth too. Growing a garden, growing a sense of security. It's So I do think, there's a very natural sign or natural side to Taurus. So I do think that there's probably a little bit more that these two have in common than at first blush. And I think that really finding a sense of joy, finding a sense of exploration, finding expansion in all the things that help support your physical being, whether that's money, whether that's a sense, growing a little garden outside and feeling a way to connect to nature to help build on your own sort of personal philosophy. Philosophy is a very Jupiter word. Those are some things that kind of come to mind when I think of Jupiter going into Taurus, which will be, getting closer to Uranus in Taurus too, but I don't think they meet next year, but yeah.
True. Yeah, I always think of that character in Henry V, Shakespeare's play Henry V, Falstaff, Henry's drinking buddy.
Yeah.
Such a, like, let's just roll in the mud of life and relish it, like, let's wine, women, and song, that's totally what that character is all about. And I think Jupiter in Taurus just really relishes the physical world and enjoys it, and is like, yes, we are here in the physical, let's make money, let's build wealth, let's like grow our waistline, eating all of that rich food. And so there can definitely be some excesses along those lines when Jupiter is passing through Taurus. But the growth that Jupiter brings is so wonderful. That sense of expansion, that sense of confidence, hope, opportunities, and positioning yourself by knowing where Jupiter is and what it's up to in your chart, in its transiting form, is so important to be able to harness the opportunities, to even spot them coming and know where to take action. Jupiter transits give you a sense of fun in whatever area of life it's passing through, and really help you to harvest all the goodies that Jupiter can bring, which is pretty manifold. It certainly is possible to take a Jupiter transit too far. I think that expansion is like the best keyword for Jupiter, and that includes magnifying. So if Jupiter comes along to a part of your own chart where you already feel confident, you can become downright insufferable during a Jupiter transit. And it's important not to be that way, because you can also be charismatic, truly charismatic during a Jupiter transit, even if you're, basically a shy wallflower most of the time. This might be the moment in which you put that lampshade on your head and start dancing on tables. So Jupiter transits are really good stuff, and should definitely be, harnessed for all the good that they can bring you. Well, I just want to show you really briefly. I just want to show you this page again so that you can take note of these dates if you want to. And you can pause here if you wanted to take note of the degrees that planets are moving through. So you can think about how that can affect your own chart. And that's all for today. In this video, we gave you a lot of clues about what's coming in 2023 and how you can surf those transits instead of drowning in them. We love making these videos for you. And if you love that we do it, please do hit that like button, because it really matters to us when you tell YouTube how you feel. Let your friends know about our horoscopes too. Have a wonderful 2023. Have great transits. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye-bye.